Yo, what up? It's DFACE, DXA. Today I got a little video. I'm going to try to go through my process of tracking a beat from the SP1200 into Pro Tools, go over my process to get it from here to there. So I'm just going to go through the steps. I'm going to try to piece this together. It's going to be a little hard to film, so I apologize in advance if anything seems a little choppy. It is what it is. I'm doing this by myself, and there's a lot of moving pieces involved. So let's just get to it. So the first thing that you want to do is you're going to go into the SP1200 and you're going to assign your sounds. You might want to make little notes of what everything is. That's what I do. It helps me when I'm picking the cables and then naming my tracks in Pro Tools. So for me, I've got kicks on 6. I've got snare on 7. Hi-hat on 8. Main samples on 3. High samples are on 5. My low pass samples on 4, which I've already got a cable running out. I leave a send cable which goes into my patch bay, and I plug that into my low pass filter down here, which is a Moog joint. People asked me about it in the last one. I could technically run that into anything else, but I've got it I've got it set up in my patch bay so it automatically goes into the Moog. I could go over, I leave my patch bay normal. I could go over and patch in anything I wanted, but that's the way I got it set up. So just a quick tip before I plug everything up. Something that I do is I make a segment and also sometimes its own song, and then I don't have it loop, but I make a blank segment. You could use like just the drums or hi-hats. I normally make a segment 0-0, and I play that before my song starts, and that gives the machine a second to catch up so there's no stutter with the sequencer. And that's just a tip. Another tip is you might have more than 8 outputs that you need. So if you're going to do 2 passes, syncing everything helps you. If you're like, all right, I want to do this, instead of putting maybe put the snare and the hi-hat on the same track and then go chop them out, you might want to do it in 2 passes. So in a case like that, it would help to sync the SP to your DAW, because the SP's clock isn't perfect. So if you did 2 passes and you recorded this in once and then you went and recorded it in a second time, it's not going to line up perfectly. So that could also help when you're using like a rack sampler and you only have 8 inputs on your DAW or on your interface. So you might need to do 2 passes, and sometimes with the 3000 I've even had to do that because you've got 8 mono outputs, but it's a stereo sampler. So if, let's say, you used, it's not something that I would do, but let's say you used 8 stereo outputs, you'd have to track your 3000 in twice. The 3000 is a little different because the clock's almost perfect, as opposed to the 1200 where it's guaranteed going to be off. If you do 2 passes and you try to line them shits up together, it's not going to be on. So in that case, you're going to have to sync it. I'll go over how I sync things up by MIDI as well, and that's something you might say, I'm fine with 1 pass, I don't need to sync it, and nobody's going to rhyme on this, so I don't need to chop things up or move it. And that's just your own personal choice. Sometimes I record a beat in and I don't sync it. Sometimes I'm like, you know what, I gotta sync this, whether it's because it's 2 passes or it's because it's for a song. Sometimes I'll even do 2 versions. I'll say, all right, this is the instrumental joint, and it's just, it'll slide back and forth on the grid and I don't care. And then I'll have another version for, all right, this is the song, so this has got to line up perfectly. If I need to move someone's verse from here to there, I don't want to be following the grid and chopping by the kicks and then having to cut the verse into pieces because it doesn't perfectly line up with the way the first verse did. So it can be a little bit of a headache. And when you come from the point of view of, I'm trying to take this beat and make it into songs, sometimes syncing everything helps. So that's just my little tip. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook up the cables from the back of the SP. Right here I use a snake, which I leave wired into my patch bay, and then I kind of stick it back here, and then when it comes time to track everything in, I just go in and plug it into the back of the machine. So 6, 7, and 8. So let's just plug all those in. 7, 8. Now we just... Okay, so once you get everything patched in correctly, make sure everything lines up with the little notes you took to the tracks that you have in your DAW. You're gonna want to make sure you get a good level and just kind of go through every track. And this might not be the exact level you want it to sound like when everything's playing back, but the hi-hats might be loud, and then maybe the snare's a little quieter because when you mix it, you're going to turn the snare up and then the hi-hats down, whatever it is. But you just want to make sure everything independently on its own track gets a good level coming in. And like I said, this is a chance where you can use outboard gear like a preamp, a compressor, some plugins with your Apollo or whatever interface you use. On the Apollo, it has plugins that affect the audio before it hits the converter, which is a kind of cool idea. So like I said, it's another place to add color and characteristics to your sound, kind of give it your own flavor. So I got everything set up right here, and I'm gonna go to my song mode and hit record, or hit play, I'm sorry. I've already got everything recording back there on Pro Tools, so we'll just do a little pass real quick. And like I said, the levels might sound a little crazy now, but you just want to make sure you get a good strong signal coming in, and then you can go adjust everything once you sit and you mix it. Okay, so to go over how you sync everything, I have a MIDI cable going to the input on my SP1200, and it's coming out of the output of my transport over here. And you might have it hooked up to a MIDI interface, or your interface might have MIDI on it. I don't think mine does. I don't know. It's all the way in the rack, so I'm not even going to go back there and try to plug in a MIDI cable. It's really easy for me to use my transport, which controls my Pro Tools and sends a MIDI signal. And then what you do is you go into sync on the 1200 or the 12, and you change it from internal. You hit number 2 to MIDI, and now it's going to follow the play stop commands from your transport in your DAW, and it's also going to follow the clock, so everything will line up. Okay, so once you get everything bounced in, you just want to play it back, make sure everything's good, make sure nothing's clipped out, and that everything that you have in the machine that you want it to be in the DAW, that everything is basically what it's supposed to be. And then you can go to the next step, which is mixing it, or send it off to be mixed. And then even the next step after that, if you want to bounce it down to tape or whatever it is, those are all the creative processes that you can take to get your music sounding the way you want it to. Thank you for rocking with me, and stay tuned for more videos. How we do DXA all day. SP1200, what up?